"I just lied and put an innocent man in prison." These were the words Jason Autry spoke in 2024, admitting that his testimony, the testimony that convicted Zachary Adams of kidnapping, raping, and murdering 20-year-old nursing student Holly Bobo, was completely fabricated. For 13 years, a Tennessee family believed justice had been served. For 7 years, a man sat in prison serving life without parole based on testimony that the key witness now admits he made up. And somewhere, the real killer of Holly Lynn Bobo might still be walking free. This is the story of how a desperate search for answers became a rush to judgment, how coerced confessions and jailhouse snitches destroyed an innocent man's life, and how one of Tennessee's most expensive investigations may have convicted the wrong person for one of the state's most heartbreaking murders. If you're new to The Only Witness, welcome to the channel where we expose the truth behind America's most controversial cases. Before we dive into the Holly Bobo case, the abduction, the 3-year search, the arrest that shocked everyone, and the confession that's now unraveling everything, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe with notifications on, and comment below where you're watching from. Are you in Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi? We want to hear from all 50 states because this case has destroyed multiple families and raised serious questions about whether Tennessee got the right man. This is the story of Holly Bobo, the beautiful nursing student who walked into the woods one April morning and never came home. This is the story of Zachary Adams, the man convicted of her murder who may be innocent. And this is the story of how the desperate need for justice can sometimes lead to injustice. April 13, 2011 started as an ordinary Wednesday morning in Darden, Tennessee, a tiny rural community in Decatur County with a population of less than 300 people. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where people don't lock their doors, and where violent crime is virtually non-existent. Holly Lynn Bobo was 20 years old, beautiful, talented, and full of life. She was a nursing student at the Tennessee Technology Center in Parsons, working hard toward her dream of becoming a nurse. Holly was known for her kindness, her bright smile, and her love for her family and community. She sang in her church choir, was beloved by everyone who knew her, and had her entire future ahead of her. Holly lived with her parents, Dana and Karen Bobo, and her 25-year-old brother Clint in a house on a secluded property surrounded by woods. That morning, Holly woke up at 4:30 a.m. to study for a nursing exam she had later that day. Her mother Karen got up a bit later and made Holly a muffin and packed her lunch before leaving for work around 7:30 a.m. At 7:40 a.m., Holly's boyfriend called her. They talked for about 2 minutes, a normal, brief conversation between two people in love. This would be the last time anyone would speak to Holly Bobo alive. At 7:42 a.m., Holly hung up with her boyfriend. 2 minutes later, at 7:44 a.m., her phone went dead. The battery or service had failed, or someone had turned it off. Clint Bobo was still home that morning. He was sleeping late and heard Holly's dog barking outside around 7:50 a.m. He looked out the window and saw his sister kneeling by her car in the carport talking to someone. What happened next would haunt Clint Bobo for the rest of his life. Clint saw a man in camouflage standing near Holly. In rural Tennessee, seeing someone in camouflage during hunting season isn't unusual, and Clint's initial assumption was that it was Holly's boyfriend who often wore camo. But something felt wrong. Clint watched as Holly stood up and walked away from the carport with the man in camouflage. They were walking toward the woods behind the house. Holly's body language didn't seem right. She wasn't walking normally. She seemed compliant, but not comfortable. Then Clint saw blood. There was blood in the carport where Holly had been kneeling. Clint immediately called his mother at work. "Holly's in trouble," he said. "There's blood everywhere." Karen Bobo called 911 at 8:02 a.m., 14 minutes after Holly had last been seen. She reported that her daughter had been dragged into the woods by a man in camouflage and that there was blood at the scene. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, TBI, launched what would become the largest and most expensive investigation in Tennessee history. Hundreds of law enforcement officers, volunteers, and search teams descended on Decatur County to search for Holly Bobo. But Holly was gone. Vanished into the woods without a trace. The first hours of the search were chaotic. Bloodhounds tracked Holly's scent to a road about a quarter mile from her house, where the trail went cold, suggesting she had been put into a vehicle. A massive search of the surrounding woods, fields, and waterways turned up nothing. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. The Bobo family lived in agonizing limbo, not knowing whether Holly was alive or dead, suffering or gone. The community held vigils, distributed missing person flyers, and prayed for Holly's safe return. But as time passed, hope faded. Most missing persons who aren't found within 48 hours are never found alive. And Holly had been gone for years with no credible sightings, no ransom demands, and no body. The TBI was under enormous pressure to solve the case. This was Tennessee's most high-profile abduction. National media was covering it extensively. And the Bobo family deserved answers. But for 3.5 years, investigators had no solid leads, no physical evidence, and no body. Then, in September 2014, everything changed. Ginseng hunters, people who search the woods for valuable ginseng roots to sell, discovered human remains in a wooded area of northern Decatur County, about 10 miles from the Bobo home. The remains were identified through dental records as Holly Lynn Bobo. Holly was dead. She had been shot in the back of the head, execution style. Her body had been in the woods for over 3 years, and much of the evidence that could have identified her killer had deteriorated. But now the TBI knew they were investigating a murder, not a missing persons case, and they needed to find the killer. Before we continue with how the TBI targeted Zachary Adams and the testimony that would convict him, make sure you're subscribed to The Only Witness and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. This case is about to get even more controversial as we explore how desperation for justice led to what may be a wrongful conviction. In the months following the discovery of Holly's remains, the TBI focused their investigation on a group of men from Decatur County who were known drug users and had criminal histories. The lead suspect was Zachary Adams, a 29-year-old man with a record of drug-related offenses who lived in the area. Zachary came from a troubled family. His brother Dylan Adams also had a criminal history, and both brothers were known in the community for drug use and petty crimes. But neither had ever been accused of violence, sexual assault, or anything remotely like kidnapping and murder. The TBI had no physical evidence linking Zachary Adams to Holly Bobo. No DNA, no fingerprints, no forensic evidence of any kind. But they had something else: jailhouse informants. As the investigation progressed, several inmates came forward claiming that Zachary Adams had confessed to them about killing Holly Bobo. These jailhouse snitches said Zachary had talked about abducting Holly, raping her, killing her, and disposing of her body. The most damning testimony came from Jason Autry, a convicted felon and Zachary's former friend. Autry told investigators a detailed story about how he and Zachary had kidnapped Holly together, taken her to a remote location, how Zachary raped and killed her, and how they disposed of her body. Autry's testimony was incredibly specific. He described exactly what happened, where it happened, and what Zachary allegedly said and did. His testimony was so detailed and convincing that prosecutors believed they finally had the evidence they needed to convict Holly's killer. In 2014, Zachary Adams was arrested and charged with felony kidnapping, aggravated rape, and first-degree murder in the death of Holly Bobo. His brother Dylan Adams was also arrested and charged as an accessory after the fact. Jason Autry was charged as a co-defendant, but agreed to testify against Zachary in exchange for a lighter sentence. The Bobo family finally had the answers they'd been desperate for. The TBI announced they had solved Tennessee's most infamous murder case. Justice was coming for Holly, but was it really? Zachary Adams maintained his innocence from the moment he was arrested. He insisted he had nothing to do with Holly's abduction or murder, that he didn't even know her, and that the jailhouse informants were lying to get reduced sentences or other benefits. Zachary's trial began in September 2017, 6.5 years after Holly's disappearance. The prosecution's case relied almost entirely on testimony from jailhouse informants and Jason Autry's detailed account of the crime. Jason Autry took the stand and told the jury exactly what happened. He testified that he and Zachary had spotted Holly outside her home, that they decided to abduct her, that Zachary raped her while Autry held her down, and that Zachary then shot her in the back of the head and they disposed of her body. Autry's testimony was graphic, detailed, and devastating. He described Holly's final moments, her pleas for her life, and how Zachary coldly executed her. The jury listened in horror, and the Bobo family wept in the courtroom. But there was a problem. There was absolutely no physical evidence to support Autry's story. No DNA from either Zachary or Autry on Holly's remains. No forensic evidence connecting them to the crime scene. No witnesses who saw them with Holly. No digital evidence, no phone records, nothing. The defense argued that Autry was lying to save himself from prosecution, that the jailhouse informants were trading lies for favors, and that the entire case against Zachary was built on the word of convicted criminals with every reason to lie. But the jury believed Jason Autry. On September 23, 2017, Zachary Adams was convicted of first-degree murder, especially aggravated kidnapping, and aggravated rape. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole plus 50 years. The Bobo family finally had justice. Tennessee had solved one of its most heartbreaking cases. Zachary Adams would die in prison for murdering Holly Bobo. Case closed. Or was it? In 2023, Jason Autry began having second thoughts about his testimony. He was serving an 8-year sentence for his role in Holly's murder, significantly less than the life sentence Zachary received, and his conscience was bothering him. Autry reached out to a psychiatrist and began talking about what really happened, and what he said was shocking. He had made the entire story up. According to Autry's new statements, he had never been with Zachary Adams on April 13, 2011. He had never participated in Holly's abduction. He had never witnessed her murder. He had fabricated the entire detailed testimony, taking events from his own life and adding Holly to it to create a believable story. Why would Autry lie? According to him, he was facing serious charges and was desperate to avoid a long prison sentence. Prosecutors offered him a deal. Testify against Zachary Adams, and we'll give you 8 years instead of life. Autry took the deal and created a story that would convict an innocent man. In his recantation, Autry said, "That's the worst I ever felt in my life. Knowing that you just lied and put an innocent man in prison." Drop a comment right now telling us where you're watching from and whether you think Zachary Adams is innocent or guilty. Should Autry's recantation lead to a new trial? We want to hear from viewers in every state. In January 2024, Zachary Adams filed a coram nobis petition, a legal motion asking the court to overturn his conviction based on new evidence. The new evidence was Jason Autry's recantation of his testimony. Adams's defense attorneys argued that Autry's testimony had been the centerpiece of the prosecution's case, that without it there was no evidence connecting Adams to the crime, and that Autry's admission that he lied warranted a new trial. The legal proceedings that followed were contentious and emotional. The Bobo family opposed the petition, arguing that Autry was lying now and that his original testimony was truthful. Prosecutors argued that Autry was an admitted liar and that his current claims shouldn't be believed just because they contradicted his trial testimony. In September 2024, a Tennessee judge denied Zachary Adams's petition for a new trial. The judge ruled that while Autry's recantation was concerning, it wasn't sufficient grounds to overturn the conviction because Autry was inherently unreliable, and the jury had heard other testimony supporting Adams's guilt. But Adams's legal team didn't give up. They continue to fight for a new trial, arguing that the entire case against Adams was built on lies, that there is literally zero physical evidence connecting him to Holly's murder, and that an innocent man is serving life in prison based on fabricated testimony. The case raises profound questions about the American justice system. Can we trust jailhouse informants? Studies show that jailhouse informant testimony is one of the leading causes of wrongful convictions. Inmates have enormous incentives to lie, reduced sentences, better conditions, even freedom. Yet prosecutors continue to rely on this notoriously unreliable evidence. Is testimony without physical evidence enough? In Zachary Adams' case, there was no DNA, no forensics, no digital evidence, nothing but the word of convicted criminals. Should that be enough to convict someone of murder and sentence them to life in prison? What happens when key witnesses recant? Jason Autry admitted he lied. He said he fabricated his entire testimony, But the court ruled that wasn't enough to overturn the conviction. What does that say about our system's ability to correct its mistakes? Did the real killer escape? If Zachary Adams didn't kill Holly Bobo, then who did? Is the actual murderer still free because law enforcement was so focused on convicting Adams that they stopped looking for the real perpetrator? There are alternative theories about who killed Holly Bobo. Some investigators believed Terry Britt, a local sex offender, was involved. Others pointed to different suspects who were never fully investigated because the TBI was so focused on Zachary Adams. The truth is, we may never know for certain what happened to Holly Bobo on April 13, 2011. But what we do know is that the case against Zachary Adams was built on lies, that the key witness has recanted, and that an innocent man may be spending the rest of his life in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Make sure you've hit that like button and subscribed to The Only Witness. Drop one final comment telling us where you're watching from and what you think really happened to Holly Bobo. Is Zachary Adams innocent? Is Jason Autry lying now, or was he lying then? Let us know. As we close out this heartbreaking and infuriating case, we're left with more questions than answers. Holly Lynn Bobo was 20 years old when she was abducted from her home, raped, murdered, and left in the woods like trash. She deserved justice. Her family deserved answers. And whoever killed her deserves to rot in prison. But did Tennessee convict the right man? Or in their desperation to solve Holly's murder, did they railroad an innocent man based on the lies of jailhouse informants looking to save themselves? Zachary Adams has been in prison since 2014, over 10 years. He was 29 when he was arrested. He's now 39, and if his conviction stands, he'll die in prison. If he's innocent, that's 10 years of his life stolen, and decades more to come. Jason Autry is now serving his 8-year sentence with the knowledge that he may have destroyed an innocent man's life with his lies. He says he feels guilty. But guilt doesn't give Zachary back his freedom. The Bobo family continues to believe Zachary Adams killed Holly. They've suffered unimaginable grief and loss, and they need to believe that justice has been served. The thought that the real killer might still be free is too painful to contemplate. And somewhere in Tennessee, if Zachary Adams is truly innocent, the real killer of Holly Bobo may be walking free, knowing that someone else is serving his sentence. The Holly Bobo case is a tragedy on multiple levels. A young woman with her whole life ahead of her was brutally murdered. A family was destroyed by grief. And the justice system may have convicted an innocent man because the pressure to solve the case was so intense that truth became less important than closure. Thank you for watching this difficult episode of The Only Witness. If this case moved you, please share it with your true crime community. Don't forget to comment your state one more time before you go. Till next time, this is The Only Witness, reminding you that justice without truth is just revenge. And when the innocent are punished while the guilty go free, everyone loses. Rest in peace, Holly Lynn Bobo. You deserved so much better. And if Zachary Adams is innocent, may he one day walk free and reclaim the life that was stolen from him. This is The Only Witness, signing off.